welcome to Perth, everyone.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Warmest greetings to everyone out there and thanks for tuning in. We continue our video today in part 2, and I'm coming to you from Sydney Airport's Terminal 3. So let's join Live Ryan there right now because he surely has a lot to say about his carrier of choice today.
Set your affirmations, aspirations.
And g'day guys, welcome back to one of my videos, and I'm coming to you from Sydney Airport Domestic Terminal. I've just gotten off a flight from Brisbane, so I'm now in Sydney for a transit, and I'm heading to the lounge during the duration of this transit before my flight to Perth. So this is part 2 of my Qantas rant, okay? My gripes about the airline, what's going on in the present day. So without further ado, let's head to the lounge to begin this video, and then we shall proceed to Perth from there to begin this video, alright? Let's do this.
Everybody just do your thing.
If you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan. Born and bred in Singapore, I now call Australia home, and my love for food and travel knows no bounds. I cannot seem to sit still, which explains the videos of me taking to the skies just to eat at far-flung locations away from my home state of South Australia. Today is no exception. I started my journey yesterday in Adelaide, where I flew to Brisbane. After an overnight stay, I arrived earlier this morning in Sydney, and I'm now in transit, where I'll board one of Australia's longest domestic flights to Perth later on. I rest there overnight, and I return to Adelaide tomorrow. So besides flights, embedded within this series of videos are also foodie and hotel reviews. So if that's your jam, why not hit the subscribe button and bell icon? Giving me a like will definitely encourage me to keep on doing what I do. So here's the thanks, because your support is very much appreciated. If you've come into this video after reading the title, you know it's a continuation of my rant about the present state of affairs of our beloved national carrier. And yet, I still received messages from some of you who took an issue with me pointing out the negative aspects of the airline from part 1. So if you're expecting a Disney fairy tale, I strongly suggest you stop the video here and move on to The Little Mermaid. Because the whole reason for these 2 videos is to share with you what pushed me over the edge after apologizing for them for the longest time. So now that we understand the premise of today's episode, let's make our way into the Qantas Business Lounge. I arrived at a time when the kitchen was changing the food items over from breakfast to lunch. And besides the usual array of salads and sandwich-type ingredients, there were also warm food items of carrot and coconut soup and a Thai red curry. Here we go again, with the butchering of another beautiful Thai dish by Neil Perry. I will touch more about this later in the video because Neil Perry really deserves a roasting fit for the gods. In terms of catering, the Sydney lounge does not compare well with Perth, Melbourne and Brisbane because those lounges feature a far better variety of food offerings. I found the catering this morning a little lackluster, and if this is business, I really wonder what's being served over at Qantas Club. Since I was going to be fed shortly on my flight, I decided not to indulge much, so it was just a bowl of delicious soup, which I gotta admit, Qantas does this very well. The curry on the other hand really looked like shit. The downward spiral of Qantas has been pretty obvious over the last decade. They weren't really stellar to begin with, so this worsening situation can only be described as dire. So the airline has come up with several prominent advertising campaigns over the years to appeal to the emotional connections of Australians to the airline. Feels Like Home was one that was done before COVID, and they've rehashed it again for 2023, since the situation has somewhat gotten from bad to worse. So now, we're faced with feels like home again. This roundish portion of Terminal 3 is really my favorite, because there's something so retro about it. The gates in this area cater to wide-body aircraft like A330s and 787s, so if you're flying all that distance to Perth, you normally board from these gates. Since this is a Saturday, our flight QF649 is operated by a narrow-body 737-800. On a weekday, it is usually flown by an Airbus A330-200. Priority boarding is very strictly enforced by Qantas, especially at Sydney. Otherwise, the world will come to an end with takeaway cappuccinos getting airborne flying towards the faces of these agents. So anyone with gold status and above, plus business class passengers, get to board first. On a weekday morning flight, most passengers would be high-tiered flyers, so it's actually quite comical to watch, the priority line being far longer than the general one. Back when I was gold, I normally boarded with the general crowd, which was ironically a lot quicker. Operating QF649 from Sydney to Perth this afternoon is Victor Zulu Romeo, a Boeing 737-800 which first flew in August 2011, making her just under 12 years old at the time of writing. She proudly carries the name Coral Bay, which is a tiny coastal settlement in Western Australia known for its stunningly beautiful coastline. There are two versions of 737 with Qantas. This one features business class seats which are rather similar to Jetstar's business class on the 787. Same looking headrests, footrests, and just like the Jetstar 787, this Qantas 737 has seatback mounted personal TVs from row number 2 onwards. Qantas isn't alone in the airline industry for cutting back their in-flight offerings. It is really a global phenomenon. But when you're cutting back from a pretty low bar to begin with, things become a little sad. Pre-departure drinks in business class are now only found on transcontinental flights between Perth and East Coast capital cities. The situation is even sadder in economy class because they only have warm meals served on these flights. Elsewhere, it's just a packet of snacks or a sandwich. The number of complaints about the airline rose a whopping 68% in 2022 financial year. This stemmed from the company's challenging return to a post-COVID era which was marred by staff shortages and supply chain issues. So many of us still have COVID flight cancellation credits which are so challenging to use because of the restrictions placed upon by the airline, rendering it in some cases almost impossible for customers to utilize them. With regards to Virgin and Jetstar, flight credits were far easier to utilize when I needed to. Virgin's was the best because the credits were simply put into a wallet on your app, and you applied the credit however you wanted with your booking, no questions asked. So why does Qantas make it so hard for their customers and drive them off the cliff? Taking off from Sydney Airport is always a beautiful affair. with stunning views guaranteed of the city skyline to the north or the rugged coastlines of the south. Our flight path will take us towards South Australia, where we'll coast out over the limestone coast into the Great Australian Bight. Landfall will be over Western Australia, where we'll then trek towards Perth International Airport from the south, covering a distance of roughly 3,300 kilometers and a flight time of 5 hours, making this one of the longest scheduled domestic flights in the country. While it was great to have the TV in front, it meant we were now at the mercy of this absolutely laggy relic from yesteryears. And I could not adjust the brightness, so it remained in this dark mode for the length of my flight. But there was Wi-Fi anyway, so you could access the entertainment options from there with your device, which works way much better than this. It's time to eat, and the tray tables on this version of business class is very weirdly off-centered to the left, which screws with the OCD in me. Either way, one of my favorite part of flying is really the food. So I always look forward to the sight of meal trays being dished out. While I do love my food, I always worry when Qantas goes Asian, so I almost never order that option. So imagine my disappointment when the options presented were a beef masaman, Korean spicy beef, or by the time the flight attendant reached us in 3D and F, we were only left with Kung Pao chicken. Qantas has recently tweaked their business class meal service on transcontinental flights. We now get 3 options instead of 2. The other changes are an inclusion of cheese and crackers, and also a serve of starter salad. Dessert is now a separate service later in flight. So they're still trying to get the numbers right, but I don't normally make a fuss about not having my meal choice anyway because I understand the logistics of in-flight catering. So I'm just happy to eat whatever's in front of me. And I was starving at this point. So how was the Kung Pao chicken? Well, it depends on who you ask. If you're used to the Asian takeaway stalls at a suburban Westfield food court, where everything is slathered in different bright coloured sauces and lemon chicken tastes like honey chicken which tastes like sweet and sour pork tasting like pork and plum sauce, then this is decently down your alley. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of this guy...
Huh? 什么话呀？干嘛呀你？ Why people, why must you always destroy everything? 什么宫保鸡嘛，这简直是垃圾，垃圾，听得懂吗？哎呀
Neil Perry, we need to talk. So here we are. Neil Perry, you and your Asian options on Qantas. Look, I have no problems with your classic dishes that's not Asian because you do them really well. But I take issue when you try and style your Asian dishes and name them what they are. For example, Kung Pao chicken. This is how Kung Pao chicken is supposed to look like. It's rich, it's sultry, it's sexy, full of chili, spicy. And whatever that you've given us on today's flight was just absolutely rubbish, to be honest. I think you are confusing stir-fry with stews because what you gave us is a stew. And it looked like it was cooked in a suburban household behind a white picket fence on a saucepan on an electric stove. Stir-fry is made in a wok full of high flames and you throw everything in and it is stir-fried very, very quickly to sear everything in to keep the flavors in. So what you presented to us was nothing close to that. I mean, I don't mind you doing an Australian take on whatever Asian dishes you're doing, but for God's sakes, call it something else. Call it, I don't know, Australiana sweet chili chicken inspired by the Anglo-Epicurean taste buds of a suburban soccer mom in Westfield wearing their Lululemons, whatever. But please don't call it Kung Pao chicken. Which brings me to the next gripe I have is your spice bar in the Melbourne Business Lounge, because whatever comes out of that kitchen is rubbish. The only thing Asian about that so-called Asian spice bar are the people working behind it, right? So I don't know how you guys can possibly call what the
stuff you bring out from that kitchen, Asian, because obviously you guys do not know how to properly cook an actual curry paste, because the curry is not matured, it's weak, it's just coconut cream with a dash of curry powder, and it comes out being called a Thai red curry, for example. The laksa is, again, another load of rubbish there, and it really, really pains my heart, because all these dishes that you are creating from whatever kitchen that you have is all very close to my heart, because my family comes from southern China, and my ancestors have migrated to Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and we have settled in all these places. So we know our stir fries and we know our curries. And I can tell you right now that none of the Asian dishes that's coming out of your kitchen actually hits the mark. So I have pointed the problems out to you, and I'm giving you a solution. So I'm offering you me. So please let me into your kitchen to see what the hell is going on in there, because you are supposedly the expert in Asian cooking and you're not meeting the mark. So I'm very curious, whoever's writing glowing reviews about your Asian spice bar, do they actually know what they're talking about? And whoever's writing these articles, do they look like you or do they look like me? Okay, so this is what I'm offering. I'm offering you me. Let me into your kitchen to see what the hell you're doing so wrong in there to create all these rubbish dishes. I'm very happy to help you out there, okay? So please, just listen to me and let me into your kitchen.
Okay, now that I got that out of my chest, I feel much lighter. Look, kudos to Qantas in trying to add variety to their meals. All I'm saying is, if you want to do it properly, do it right. Because a lot of these dishes holds so much cultural significance to us, and butchering it like that seriously borders on being disrespectful. Despite all of that, I did rather enjoy the starter because I love anything with smoked salmon. And since I was so hungry, I channeled my inner Westfield Lululemons, took a deep breath, and just finished the main dish. There are people starving in the world as we speak, so shitty food or not, I was taught not to waste it. Nothing really appealed to me movies-wise, so I caught up with my friend Tim and watched him on his epic transit through Hong Kong airport on his latest YouTube video. He then froze for a bit, as if he saw a ghost. But I realized we're now over water, which meant there was no more Wi-Fi. Boo-hoo. As a Qantas customer, there are occasions we need to call the hotline for assistance. And depending on your status, high-tiered members will get channeled to the Aussie call centre in Hobart, and they are known to be exceptional. Elsewhere, people like me, a perpetual silver-tiered member, will get a choice of Fiji, Philippines or South Africa. And these three call centres compete with each other and trip over themselves in a rush to prove who can be more incompetent. I mentioned in my previous video about the self-churning nature of my Qantas frequent flyer account. And my paid flying points accumulation mostly happens through Jetstar, where I pay the maximum possible fare to earn points and status credits, which will be channeled back into my Qantas account. I fly so much, sometimes it's almost hard to keep track. But from the fourth quarter of 2022, I noticed my points from Jetstar had stopped getting credited. It normally takes 6 weeks anyway, so I waited till December of 2022, and that's when my engagement with Qantas call centre began. From my first to the third call, it was all with Manila. While they were baffled why I did not get my points, I was always assured at the end it was going to happen. By the time I made the fourth call, it was May 2023, and this time I got channeled to South Africa. When you call an organization as huge as Qantas, you'd think they'll answer the phone like, "Thank you for calling Qantas. This is blah blah blah. How can I help you today?" Instead, I got a "hello." I was stunned for a few seconds before I asked, "Is this Qantas?" And get this, her reply was, "Yeah, what can I do for you?" What the hell? So I explained my situation again, and the agent went, I don't know what to do because it's Jetstar." Bloody hell. She sounded like she was talking to me laying down on her own bed. And was she high? 'Cause she sure sounded like she was. I made the 5th call shortly after, and from here on it was all Manila. Now I was getting a little upset. So now I made sure my case was logged and made them provide me with a reference number of our contact. Once again, after failed assurances of my points getting credited, I made call number 6. By now, the agent had asked for my itinerary, boarding passes, and even questioned if I boarded these flights in the first place. And now they were asking me to go to Jetstar and come back to them with a letter proving that I've boarded and flown these flights I'm claiming. By now, I had Jetstar flights dating back from 2022 into 2023. Naturally, I lost my nuts and exploded over the phone to the point they hung up on me. Not my proudest moment. I had no more mental capacity to deal with Qantas by then. So it took me a while before I gathered enough juice within me and made call number 7 to Jetstar. And they understood immediately what I needed. Through the booking references provided, they were able to give me an email stating all the flights I've boarded very quickly within a few hours. We all love to crap over Jetstar, but their call center has never failed me. So now, call number 8, back to Qantas in Manila. I'm sure by now I've been flagged as an aggressive customer. So they responded quickly and knew what I wanted. I said, oh, by the way, I have the letter from Jetstar. And guess what was their reply? Sir, we do not need data. I would just manually input your points creditation and you should see it sooner. For sakes. If Qantas could do this, why the hell didn't they do it in the first place? Why put me through the ringer for the last 7 months? After call number 8, that was what led me to this point. I looked into my Qantas account and went on a mission to zero everything out because this was just ridiculous. That was when it dawned on me how difficult it is as a silver-tiered member to redeem award seats on an international flight. Which is what brought me here now. The redemption trip to take me all over Australia because of how pissed off I am with the airline. And after this, I still haven't managed to zero everything out. Perhaps it's time to get a toaster or a Fitbit with my points. It's such a pity Qantas Shopping doesn't partner with Sexyland. Some gag gifts would be nice. Whatever it is, I'm sure there'll be more domestic redemption flights to come. All my points and status credits finally arrived on the 30th of June, on the first day of this trip. Just over 7 months since my engagement with Qantas call center began. It shouldn't be this hard. Which is why this campaign of Feels Like Home means absolutely nothing to me. I wasn't born in Australia, and as a migrant, I have no emotional connections whatsoever to Qantas. And in my previous career in Singapore, I crafted these campaigns. So I can see through all these attempts at trying to rile up emotions to endear yourselves to the airline. So I see Qantas for what it is. Just a second-rate carrier with no incentives to offer us any more than they already are. Because why should they? Their domestic operations are so profitable with no worthy competitors, it overshadows everything else. So it doesn't matter if they don't offer much on their international flights as well. Heck, in-flight offerings are crap, but Aussies will still fly them because you know what? It feels like home. Qantas has left the heavy lifting of their lousy in-flight product to some of the best cabin crew you ever find in the industry. And in business class, they work really hard to pimp up what's essentially soft offerings that's failed to keep up with competition, especially in the international arena. The apologetic faces of these cabin crew says it all. The shoulder shrugs and a look of resignation. But they give us what they have left, their smile. The manager on this flight was absolutely superb. Because my seat neighbor and I were the only two who did not receive our meal choices. She went out of her way to make sure our drinks were never empty and offerings of extra snacks. As she prepared the cabin for arrival, she gave us each a bag of chocolates and quietly mentioned we both already had points compensation into our respective accounts for the inconvenience. I'm seldom shocked into silence. But there I was, stunned for a few good seconds. It was very unnecessary, But this is what separates outstanding service from great service. She went beyond, and it was most appreciated. I wrote her a letter of compliment afterwards because her job is some of the toughest and at times very thankless. So if someone's done well, it needs to be acknowledged. So here's a nod to Nicole on QF649 on the 1st of July. You're truly a gem to the company, and I look forward to flying with you again. My offering to Neil Perry, the coordinator for Qantas in-flight catering, seriously remains. He's been described as an expert in Asian cuisine, whatever the hell that means. For now, his Asian dishes are no different to the crap Asian dishes put out by Jamie Oliver. He obviously has very little understanding of Asian spices and how to use them. Throwing random spices into coconut cream does not make a curry, and stir-fry is not a stew. And for a chef of his standing, something doesn't gel. I'd like him to serve his dishes to the MasterChef judges. Wait, strike that. Serve it to the judges of MasterChef Asia. Because the saying in MasterChef remains very true. If you want to tweak with a recipe, you'd better damn well make sure it's better than the original. Until then, unfortunately, we'll be at the mercy of whatever Asian rubbish his kitchen churns out. My final parting shot is for the call center. You pay peanuts, you get monkeys, pure and simple. My absolutely horrible experience dragging on for 7 months is really not for the faint-hearted. We fly, accumulate points, and it gets credited into our account. It's not rocket science. But these agents I dealt with were ill-trained, had very weak product knowledge, and what's with South Africa? Are they operating on a different planet? I think I've spoken enough about this airline for now, and I thank you for indulging in my rants. Let's arrive into Perth International Airport right here, right now to conclude the video. Welcome to Perth, everyone. This is the state capital of Western Australia, and it's very, very nice to be back. Perfect weather today. This is winter, so the weather's a bit cooler. So yeah, that was Qantas for you, a transcontinental flight across the country of Australia from Sydney. So that flight took about 5 hours, which is always nice to sit back, relax and enjoy the flight, especially if you're at the pointy end. Yeah, so that was my rant about Qantas and the state of affairs today. Do you think it's fair? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence, you know. On one hand, I'm kind of pissed off with Qantas. On the other side, when you have excellent service like this, you feel touched, right? And the flight attendant was just so excellent today, and I really have no complaints about the in-flight service today. I mean, what do you think about the state of affairs with Qantas? I mean, leave me a comment and let me know what do you think in the comment section. Yeah, I would like to hear from you. In the meantime, I've chucked details of my Instagram on your screen right now, so hit me up there, chuck me a follow, so you can actually see where am I traveling to in real time, and it also gives you an idea of the type of videos that will be coming up on my YouTube channel. Alright, of course, more importantly, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you know every single time I get on board another long transcontinental flight in Australia. In the meantime, take care all of you, and I will see you for my next video. Bye.